Mr. President.
Republican Whip.
Mr. President, Senate and quorum call?
Fear not.
Oh, yeah, we're not. Okay. Mr. President, yesterday the Senate unanimously approved my resolution with Senator Rounds formally congratulating the South Dakota State University football team on their championship season. And what a great season it was for the Jackrabbits. They ended the season 14-1 and never lost a game in their conference. They earned the #1 seed in the football championship subdivision playoffs, and they brought home the FCS National Championship for the first time in program history with a 45-21 win against the North Dakota State Bison last month in Frisco, Texas. Mr. President, I happened to be on hand for that game. It was an extraordinary game and capped off an extraordinary season. I happened to be there for the semifinal game against Montana State, which the Jackrabbits won decisively. And in each of those games and their games throughout the season, they demonstrated on the field not only great skill, but just an incredible determination, resilience, and a willingness to play together as a team, which really I think is what distinguished and differentiated their team from many others around the country this year. It really was an extraordinary team to watch on both sides of the ball, and as someone who has been a fan of sports for a long time, really exciting to see the success that they had not only throughout the course of the season, but ultimately capping it off with the national championship. Mr. President, that championship win was a fitting capstone to Coach John Stiegelmeier's 26th season, I should say, career leading the Jacks. Coach Stig, as he's affectionately known, is the heart and soul of Jackrabbit football. Like many South Dakotans, he learned his values from his dad. He worked on a family farm in Selby, South Dakota. His dad told him, if you work hard, be a good person, you will have success. Work hard, be a good person, and you will have success. Well, I'd say Coach Stig has done all three. His determination transformed SDSU's football team into what it is today. SDSU became a Division I program under his leadership, and former Jacks players have gone on to careers in the NFL. His calm, patience, and caring set the standard for the players and made the team a family. And he leaves as the winningest coach in SDSU history, the 2022 FCS Coach of the Year, and of course, with the national title for the team that he's dedicated his career to making great. Huge congratulations to the Jackrabbits on their season and to Coach Stig, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. You've earned it. Mr. President, yesterday Republicans confirmed their committee assignments for the new Congress. And for the 118th Congress, I'm excited to once again be serving South Dakotans on the Senate Agriculture, Finance, and Commerce committees. Mr. President, if any committee is a good fit for a South Dakota senator, it's the Senate Agriculture Committee. Agriculture is the lifeblood of South Dakota, and day in and day out, one of my top priorities is addressing the needs of farmers and ranchers. And my seat on the Senate Agriculture Committee gives me a particularly valuable platform from which to advocate for South Dakota producers. Over the years, thanks in part to my position on the committee, I've been able to help secure resources for farmers and ranchers whose herds and crops have been hit hard by adverse weather. I've been able to strengthen the farm safety net through commodity programs like the Agricultural Risk Coverage Program. And I've been able to establish a safety net for livestock producers through programs like the Livestock Indemnity Program and the Livestock Forage Program. I've been able to make the Conservation Reserve Program a more effective tool for producers, and more. And 2023 is a particularly exciting time to be on the Ag Committee because 2023 is a Farm Bill year. During my time in Congress, I've been involved in drafting 4 farm bills, and I'm eager to get to work on my 5th. I've been gearing up for the 2023 Farm Bill since last year when I began convening roundtables with farmers and ranchers and ag stakeholders to hear about their top priorities for this year's bill. I've also introduced several pieces of legislation that I will work to get included in this Farm Bill, including legislation to strengthen and improve the Conservation Reserve Program, increase the information available on the impacts of conservation practices, and address the needs of South Dakota livestock producers. In addition to focusing on the Farm Bill, I'll be monitoring the evolving situation on the Obama-era Waters of the United States rule that President Biden's Environmental Protection Agency just resurrected, which would give the federal government sweeping jurisdiction over most water features in our state, from ephemeral streams to prairie potholes. This would be a nightmare for South Dakota landowners, and particularly farmers and ranchers, and I will be doing everything I can to keep the heavy hand of the federal government out of the business of regulating landowners' puddles. Mr. President, I'm also proud to continue serving on the Commerce Committee, of which I'm a long-term member, including 4 years as chairman. The Commerce Committee's jurisdiction is broad. It's the Senate's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles Committee, and it's Oceans and Space. It's the Technology Committee. Our work is inherently forward-looking, and it's often some of the most interesting, relevant, and exciting work going on in the Congress. So it's no surprise that the Commerce Committee offers plenty of opportunity to deliver for South Dakotans. With a reliable internet connection being increasingly essential for everyday life, closing the digital divide is more important than ever. And as a member of the Commerce Committee, expanding broadband access into unserved areas has long been a priority of mine. I've worked to support broadband expansion, reduce unnecessary obstacles to building reliable networks, and most recently, to hold federal agencies accountable to ensure that federal funding for rural broadband goes to its intended purpose, which is expanding broadband access to areas that currently lack it. I also believe we need to hold big tech platforms accountable. South Dakotans and many other Americans are frustrated by the lack of transparency in these companies' content moderation practices. In this Congress, I'll be working to advance my bipartisan legislation to increase transparency and due process for users on Internet platforms. I'll continue working to ensure that rural states like South Dakota have a seat at the table when it comes to infrastructure investment. I've spent my time on the Commerce Committee working to support rural states' unique transportation needs, especially maintaining reliable transportation for livestock and agricultural products. Last year, I worked on a bipartisan fix to shipping bottlenecks that were interrupting exports of South Dakota agricultural products and other goods. This year, we will need to reauthorize the Federal Aviation Administration, and improvements to South Dakota's airport infrastructure and rural air service will be among my priorities. Mr. President, my third committee assignment is on the Senate Finance Committee. Over at Finance, we focus on tax, trade, and health issues. Making sure that our tax system is serving our economy and American workers is something I take very seriously. And I am deeply committed to making sure that we keep a lid on the amount of money the federal government is taking out of Americans' paychecks. I was proud to be involved in the Republican-led tax reform legislation that passed in 2017, which allowed Americans to keep more of their hard-earned money and helped ensure that American businesses can be competitive in the 21st century economy so that they can offer the best opportunities to American workers. And one of my priorities right now is making sure that we extend or make permanent expiring provisions of the 2017 legislation so that American families and businesses aren't facing tax hikes in the near future. Another priority of mine at the Finance Committee is making sure that we are opening new markets for American products and services abroad. And of course, agricultural producers in particular are at the top of my mind. They've had a tough couple of years between inflation, shipping issues, meat processing bottlenecks, and all the usual challenges that come with an industry where a single storm can wipe out a year's work. And opening up new market access opportunities for our ag producers to sell their products is one of my biggest Finance Committee priorities. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has done very little to advance U.S. trade leadership and create new markets for American products and services. And so this year, I'll be doing everything I can to ensure that we are advancing trade opportunities that benefit American producers and American workers. Mr. President, it's the honor of my life to represent South Dakotans in the United States Senate. And I am excited about the opportunities that I will have this year at the Agriculture, Finance, and Commerce Committees to serve the people of South Dakota and to help make life better for Americans around the country. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.